Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jen Carroll Show. It is Wednesday, December 11th, and I could not be happier to be with you this morning. It is morning, in fact, in my world. One of the hidden agendas I have for this podcast is to mobilize smart people who aren't sure what the hell they should be doing next. And as part of that mobilization, you don't know this, but I really want to train you to be leaders. And I don't mean train, I mean encourage. If you're here right now listening to this podcast, first of all, thank you very, very much. But number two, it means that you are curious and engaged. And those are two of the most important qualities of being a leader. The last one would be taking action. And that's essentially the goal of my podcast, is to provide you with information that you can act on. And then to also give you some new skills, if you haven't tried them yet, so that you can test out some of those skills and see if they work for you. And those skills come a lot from both my leadership experience in Silicon Valley, but also my leadership coaching training, which I really appreciated because they gave us some tools to remove common roadblocks that get in our way. So over the course of listening to this podcast, as many of you know, because I've had some followers who have been with me quite a while, I hope I'm dropping some knowledge and some life-changing insights that you can use to make your life better. But as a leader and the kind of person we need to help us in this, to save our democracy, I'm just going to keep going big with this. We've got to save democracy. To me, it's like our top priority, right? Save democracy. We're all going to have to cope as we try to save democracy, which I'm hoping I'll also have some tips for you on coping. But that's our big job. And so to do that, I want to give you some tips on how to start becoming a leader in whatever way that means for you. So this is your choice on how you choose to manifest. But the things that I'd like you to do, to consider as you listen to this podcast, is after you hear a podcast, share it. If you like my podcast, please share it. Also, expose your circle to the things you care about. So you heard something, you've read something, you were on Blue Sky, you came up with some ideas, or you listened to some of the stuff that other people are sharing out there. Expose your circle to the things that you're caring about, and make sure they know not just the slogan, the tagline, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. That is not a discussion to have. That's a stupid soundbite. And unfortunately, it's a very effective soundbite. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I'm saying is, when you hear they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs, you say, wow, today's fake news is grabbing the headlines, and here's why it's dangerous. And this is what we can do about it. And it can be as much as we can just make sure everybody knows it's false. Or here's why it's dangerous, because people are already leaving Springfield, or wherever the town was, in Ohio. The Haitians are already leaving now. Now that Trump won, they're leaving. It's super dangerous. It's so dangerous to target people like that. But also, it gives you an opportunity to take people through the longer version and the more understandable version of the story. What's happening in our news cycles is we don't connect the dots. And that's really what we can do. First of all, because you have total credibility with your circle of friends and the people you influence. You come credible. And second of all, the more you learn about it, the more you'll find ways we can fight it. And a lot of this fight is going to be around just saying no. Just no. And women, I know we've been practicing this skill now ever since the Me Too movement and before. No means no, but we're going to really bring our female no means no to the party. And frankly, men, I don't think you guys say no enough either. And I know I called y'all out on not getting after your friends that you know are dicks and calling out their behavior. You don't have to call them out on their personality. Call them out on their behavior and say, that was a dick move, bud. That's a super simple sentence. And by the way, I think more women should be saying that's a dick move, because it really feels fun to say. And it really is apt description sometimes. But the other thing is that you can, as a leader, you always need to stand up to bigotry. You just do. Anytime you see the hate going, you choose where it's safe for you to enter. Your safety is always the top priority. So that's just taken for granted, that you need to make the right choices about how you stand up to bigotry, but you need to stand up to bigotry, even if it's in your head. And this is important because it works. Even if your head says no, because you're programming your brain that is to know that that's no. It's actually a really good way to manage anxiety too. But let's just start with bigotry. All right. And finally, there's this idea of using your body for justice. And it's funny. I have always been an overweight woman, always, since the beginning of time. My dad, rat bastard, my dad even made me have a diet race with him when I was 12 years old. And if you understand the chonkiness of middle school, it was so inappropriate. It hurts me now because it really damaged the hell out of me. But of course he won, because men can lose weight really easy. But the fact is that I am exactly his body. Like, it is not, my brothers didn't get my dad's body. I got my dad's body. My brothers get my mom's bird-like body. No, but I get my dad's body. And the way he made me hate his body in my manifestation was significant. So I spent a lot of my life, kind of trying to adapt or accommodate or hide or something my fat body, until I had a friend who was Katie's first childcare provider and taught me much, much about parenting. She listened, she was part of the RIE movement, which is a really good parenting movement. If you don't know about it, it's even a good grandparenting movement. It's basically saying a kid is a human being and you don't just go wailing on them. Even something as simple as shoving a Kleenex in their face to blow their nose. Before you do that, you tell them, I'm going to wipe your nose with this Kleenex, because that's how you respect another person's body. I mean, it's very body respectful. This I always want to call it REI, like the big sports outlets, but I believe it's RIE. Anyway, you can Google that too. But Rainbow, yes, of course her name was Rainbow. Rainbow's body could not be hidden. I thought I masterfully hid my body often as a executive in Silicon Valley, because I was not a girly girl, so I had to kind of, be very super competent. I was so competent. But Rainbow taught me how to use my body to actually, as actual presence, and to step into my physical being and use that as presence. And I suspect athletes who hear this are like, Jen, what the hell are you talking about? That's literally it. But I'll have you know, me and exercise are not good friends. I'm a ballerina in the damn pool. But actually, I don't get endorphins. Whatever this body is made from, and its DNA, history, whatever the hell made this manifestation of humanity, that is me, I don't get endorphins and stuff from exercise. So my body and I, until I had Katie, and even that was a struggle, but until I had Katie, me and my body weren't really ever on the same team. But now we are. And part of that is stepping into who I am, which is I am a bouncy dancing fool who loves water activities. And because I'm, like I said, my hyperflexibility in the water makes me quite the little ballerina. The idea is, though, I lean into my body and I use it. And this might be different for women, because I think a lot of women really identify with their bodies in either, ideally in an athletic way. That's pretty cool. Never felt that. But also in a very sexual way. Most women are very much in their bodies sexually. Again, as a fat woman, that's not like a normal zone. That it just doesn't get the same response. So what I'm saying is, find who you are with your body, assess that relationship. And then here's what I mean by using your body. You can step into a conversation. You can stand up and get noticed. You can block someone without ever touching them by putting your body in the way. You can do stupid things with your body like Elon Musk and jump thinking that you are being clever and creating the figure X. Oh my God. Sorry, there just needs to be a podcast about Elon's just fucking mental disease. But anyway, the idea is use your body. Think about how you use your body. And if you have been not paying attention, now's the time, because it's also part of how you can lead. All right, that was the Jen Carroll soapbox issue. I wanted to share that because I just think it's something we don't think about consciously very often. And especially if you're a person of a certain age, meaning anybody over 40, your body starts to change and your body starts to sometimes not be your friend. So making friends with your body again and figuring out what you can and can't do with it and using it for some new skills, not a bad idea. And I'm going to just leave that innuendo in there because it's kind of cute. All right, on to today's Zeitgeist. Cue music here, which I don't have. All right, today in the Zeitgeist, it's a big day. First of all, I want to tell you, last night, as some of you know, my adult recreation of choice is not alcohol. I I'll have a margarita and I'll have a glass of Prosecco, but I'm not a good drinker. I don't like drinking. It's not my favorite thing. Every time I've ever gotten into real trouble, there's been alcohol involved. So we're going to just set that one aside. But I do appreciate a little puff on the vape. And last night, it was late, and the way I wind down and try to really get my brain to shush is I'll play Candy Crush, and I'm usually buzzed. And in the middle of that, there's an ad with Dr. Oz in it on Candy Crush. And folks, I know we're heading into weird times, but to see someone who is potentially going to have a presidential appointment, first of all, that's just a funny sentence to say Dr. Oz is going to get a presidential appointment. But second of all, to have that person in your Candy Crush game at 11 at night, it's dystopian AF. Like, I don't even know. So let's just start there. In the zeitgeist is Dr. Oz on Candy Crush. The other thing in the zeitgeist is not adorable and cute like that. The other thing that's in the zeitgeist is in the UK, they have decided to permanently make hormone blockers for trans kids unavailable. I could start crying on this one because I think everybody knows that there's a very important trans person in my life who grew up with my daughter and transitioned, and I can cry because I know the pain that he was in. He was in so much pain in his female body. He wouldn't shower. I've shared the stories. He wouldn't shower. He couldn't hardly breathe when he looked at himself. And it caused so many behavior problems and so much trauma for this poor kid. So the idea that here's what a hormone blocker does. If you don't know, the hormone blockers, they're like the most beautiful, beautiful medications on this planet. All they do is prevent you from going into puberty. And that means if you are a female to male transgender person, you don't want to have a period. You don't want all those things connected with having a period to happen, like breast tissue growth. Female breast tissue growth, not male breast tissue growth. Like, it even affects, sorry, this might be too much information, but it even affects clitoral development and how, and bleeding and everything else for having a period. Like, it's just all these things. On the male side, hormone blockers prevent you from getting whiskers and growing a beard and having your voice drop down like this. Like, there's a lot of value in the hormone blockers because what it allows for, and it's the biggest gift ever, is time. Now, it happens that the child I'm associated with, everybody knew that this child was a male, was presenting male, living male. Every part of him was male, as early as first grade. And frankly, if you ask his mother, earlier, but she didn't even know what it meant. Like, she just thought it was pretend, like just all make believe, as little kids are. You got your preschoolers, it's all make believe. That's the joy of preschool, right? So if you could just have the time to not force their bodies through puberty so that they can get their brains, because remember, frontal lobe, executive functioning takes a while, takes till about 24 actually, but to get your brains to catch up so then you can make choices about surgeries and reassignment and all that stuff as you come into your late teens. Now you get it. You've learned more. You've been exposed to more. Your parents are on board because they've had a chance to digest the information and comes to terms with it. And working with parents of transgendered kids, parents go through their own, grief and change and mourning the loss of a one-gendered child for a different kind of gendered child. And they don't not love their children. At least that was my experience. These parents, most of them still love their kids, but man, do they fall over themselves in their own ignorance, disbelief, and I don't know, somehow make it about them. So the idea that these hormone blockers are not going to be available in the UK anymore, and by the way, coming soon to a country near you that you live in, this is where we're at. There's also a story going around, I'll see if I could find it. A horrible thing happened in Florida prisons with transgender inmates the other day. I'm going to include that. These are all links to these things will be on the blog post, so the program post. So please come in if you want to learn more about that. And then the last thing in the zeitgeist, okay, so we've gone from insane zeitgeist of Candy Crush to the tragic zeitgeist of no more hormone blockers to now the real zeitgeist, which is Mark Elias. And folks, I'm going to go hard on this one, and I really want you to watch a video I'm posting on my page. It's about 27 minutes. You do not have to watch it. You can just listen to it. But what he is saying is so important. And it's this shift from the resistance to the opposition. So I'm going to pound this for us because we've got to get this internalized. No longer, and Mark will tell you, the resistance worked. The resistance was good. The resistance was successful. But no longer are we merely resisting. We now are going to put some intention behind this, and we are the opposition. And that is the difference between please don't and hell no. So big distance there, because please don't is typical Democrat civility. Hell no is some street Democrat boundaries. So that's where we're going to go. I would very much like if you would listen to Mark on this one video, because he lays it out. You'll understand what he's talking about, and then you'll know what we're going to hold journalists and our leaders to, what kind of accountability we're going to use to hold them to this level of no, not being nice anymore. We're not going to be nice anymore. We're literally going to say hell no. And I have it's a little premature, but I have two Gen Z. I decided they're my Gen Z correspondents, and many of the things that they are going to come on and talk about are really aligned with Mark Elias. I have to say, mad props to Mark Elias for reading the damn room and understanding the shift, because Gen Z and Gen Alpha will be behind them, right? Gen Z, Gen Alpha should be old enough to vote. Some of the old Gen Alpha should be old enough to vote in 2026. Is that what we're looking at now? So he gets it. He's Mark Elias has already read the room. The reason I need us to hear this is we've got to change some of the ways we've been thinking and how we're thinking it, and draw a new line in the sand, stand behind our sand line, and start to say hell no. So we'll have more about that. But the action item today is, if you get a minute, please watch this 27 or listen to this 27 minutes from Mark, just so you get the basis of the conversation. I wrote a story for Medium, and I want to go through it with you. And it's there'll be a free link on the podcast page, so you can come in and read the article if you want. You don't need to after we talk about it. But I wanted to share it with you because I think it's important about the language you use. You know me, I'm always listening to the words, and the words matter. And one of the things that we're talking about all the time is Trump's only picking people who are loyal to him. And I'm going to call bullshit right now. Hell no. In the words of Mark Elias, hell no. This is absolutely, positively not about loyalty. So with the media constantly referring to Trump loyalists, they perpetuate the misunderstanding of what loyalty truly means. At its core, now think about this, guys. Y'all grew up like me. We just normal is what I mean. Like, we read books, we understood what words meant, they had meaning, and we attached to them. And loyalty, the first time I think many of us learned about loyalty was with our family pet, like the loyal family dog or loyal cat who was always there when you would cry. Loyalty really had a meaning. At its core, loyalty is a relationship, and it's rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared values. Okay, think about that. This is what you should know to be true. Loyalty is rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared values. Probably don't even need to go on, because you can already see that the so-called loyalty Trump is demanding from his allies is not built on those principles at all. Instead, it mirrors obedience. And that's an entirely different dynamic with profound implications for democracy. Maybe I should write with fewer big words so I could say them. Anyway, the idea that Trump loyalty is wrong. It's not democratic. It's not about democracy. It's about being obedient. And here's an example of a headline and a story that focuses on loyalty, when the story is really about individuals who are so craven that they're willing to sell their souls for access to power. And that is called obedience. Like when you make that deal with the devil and you work out your negotiations, you say, sure, you can have my soul for all eternity. If I could only be as cool as Donald Trump. When you do that contract, then you are required to be obedient. You get the reward for however many years the terms of your lovely be like Donald Trump life exists. But when it's over, your soul is sold. These people, and that's all based on being obedient. This is not a mutual respect. So In this case, in this story, it's really frustrating because in the AP, Trump has long said the biggest mistake of his first term was choosing the wrong people. When he arrived in Washington as an outsider who had never served in government, he said he relied on others for personal recommendations. Oh, yeah, he's not going to make the same mistake this time. The deal is real loyalty thrives on trust and not fear. Real, true loyalty. It's a bond formed through reciprocal commitment, meaning I got your back and you got mine. Here's an example. And I hesitated to use employers, but the thing is that a lot of us, by our very nature and how we were raised and our kind of American ethos, we believed it's important to be loyal to our employer because there was a mutual relationship. I work for you, you pay me, I do my best for you because I want you to be successful. And the side effect of me helping them be successful is I look really smart, right? That's all. Whenever you're helping someone else succeed, it reflects back on you in a really nice way. That's mutuality, that's reciprocal. So I did look at work because there are employers out there who treat employees with dignity, fairness, and respect, and they create this environment where loyalty becomes a mutual investment. All right, I'm from Ventura, and Patagonia is known for this ethos. They got your back, you've got their back. That company has soared because their employees put the company right up there with the kind of respect you give to someone who's worthy of your loyalty. You also, of course, build loyalty among your friends and your family because you have shared experiences and sacrifice that strengthen that foundation of trust. And we all know, like we've done something for someone we love, that's something we may not normally do, or that was really hard, but then we know they've got my back for life. It's such a good feeling, like to know. And I drop names all the time on this podcast. Why? These people have had my back. And I don't think of loyalty as blindness. I think of loyalty as an active thing that we do and choices that we make. And I absolutely covet and treasure the people who have shown me loyalty, which is a gift, not an obligation, right? Okay, so when you experience loyalty and you're on the receiving end, like I have been, it's the best feeling in the world. It just means, wow, they're there for me. You know someone has your back, and probably you have theirs. It's very often. It's not very often when loyalty is one way. Typically, it's reciprocated. Trump, however, doesn't give a damn about cultivating trust. I don't think he knows what trust is. I'm sure trust to him is obedience. He doesn't use all these regular words. His relationships are one way. He operates through mechanisms of control that foster fear of retribution. Joni Ernst, is that her name? Who served in the military as a woman, who knows how depraved it can be. Serving as a woman in the military is starting to cave on Pete Hegseth. That's because of fear of retribution. There's no other. And ironically, this is a woman who served in the military who understands retribution probably better than most because she knows what it was like to be bullied, terrorized, and treated like crap by men in the military. And yet she's still afraid. She's still afraid today. And that it makes me sad, but we can't be afraid anymore. So that's a different podcast for a different day. But the idea is Trump operates through these mechanisms of control. So when we're saying loyalty, it's not loyalty, it's fear of retribution. And he isn't a leader. Leaders bring you with them. Leaders go out in front and say, here's where we're going, folks, and why. And trust me, because I know what I'm doing. That's a leader. Trump is not a leader. He's a bully, and he's absent any skills or experience that make him leadership material. Seriously, he does not have 1 ounce of leadership material, except maybe, and I don't even think that's a good characteristic. He has a loud voice, but I don't even like leaders with loud voices. So there are some out there, but loud voices does not make you a leader. It just means that you're the loudest person in the room. Anyway, Trump should always be called a dictator, not a leader. And Trump has what Dr. Steve Adubato. He has been in politics. He's also studies behavior and stuff. He says what Trump has is called a me-centric leadership approach. He actually did go ahead and call it leadership, but he called it me-centric. The president-elect won't criticize Vladimir Putin because he has said nice things about Trump. That's what I call me-centric. It's leading with your ego.
Okay, we all know it's narcissism, but that's okay. It's leading with ego and it's not strategic. And it's how leaders get played. This is all from Steve. This dynamic, so it's true. If you're really just there for whoever's going to give you the next treat, which is kind of Trump's whole approach, who's got a treat, who's got a treat. He's just that manic food craven dog in the pack that's only food, that's food focused only. That's him. Who's talking about me? Are you going to give me something? What's in it for me? Are we going to play this about me? Anyway, it does position him as being easy to be played, right? Because if he'll do anything for treats, then he's going to do anything for treats. So the dynamic is not loyalty, it's coercion. And so the obedience is stemming from power and not partnership. And obedience, unlike loyalty, it's rooted in unequal distribution of power, right? That's the whole key. So if you're obedient and you act out of fear or compulsion, other than genuine belief in the leader's vision, the people standing behind Trump, some of them believe in the vision, but I don't even think it's Trump's vision because Trump doesn't have a leadership visions. What Trump's managed to assemble is a bunch of individuals who have their own maniacal view of the world, and we've already seen it. Elon has a maniacal view. Vivek um, has a maniacal view. JD Vance has no maniacal view, but he is fed a maniacal view by Elon and Peter Thiel. RFK Jr. has a worm-addled view, but everyone has their own point of view. Kash Patel, Cash Yup, I want to call him Cash Yap, Cash Yap Patel, because yep, he's all there for the cash. Cash Patel has his own view. He can say it's in subservience to Trump and obedience to Trump, but Cash has his own agenda. He's published it in his book. So what we need to watch for is this isn't leadership and followers. This is craven morons who've signed up, sold their souls just so they can have some power in weird ass ways. Okay, and this is really important because obedience is rooted in an unequal distribution of power. Unequal, right? Those who are obedient act out of fear other than genuine belief in the vision. And Timothy Snyder, and if you don't know who that is, shame on you. Timothy Snyder wrote on tyranny, that little tiny book with 20 rules. One of them is don't obey in advance, which clearly none of the media who are capable of reading, at least that's how they got their degrees, are unable to read. Don't obey in advance. But Timothy Snyder warns that authoritarian dictators demand obedience so they can centralize control and dismantle dissent. So you get it. Once you join the force, and sorry, now we'll go back to Star Wars. Man, I wish I was better at this. When you sign up for Darth Vader's team, you don't get to unsign up. That was really clear. When you're on Darth Sirius, was that was his name? I love these bad guys. They all get to dress up and drag. It's so cool. But when you're on that team, you don't get to defect. That's just not possible. It's funny because when you're on our team, you can defect. We want you to belong because you want to be there. You need to choose to be there. It's a big difference. So labeling Trump supporters as loyalists, it's obscuring the fear-based structure and the underpinning of their compliance. And that's my issue. And that's the issue you should have. And the media needs to pull their head out of their goddamn lazy ass. He is not surrounding himself with loyalists. He's surrounding himself with sycophants and lots of other words. And maybe we need to build a list, but they're not loyalists. This distinction matters because loyalty implies a choice, a belief in the leader's character or mission. And that's how the media is screwing us over. They're giving Trump way more authority and credit than is due by saying he's surrounding himself with loyalists. Just not true. They are not loyal. They are obedient and they're there for their own personal interests. This is an amalgamation of hedonists and narcissists and bigots. And they are all there to play in Darth's playground, but they all have their own missions. Obedience strips away choice, replacing it with submission, and the result is a dangerous erosion of the democratic principle that power is derived from consent of the governed. So this distinction matters because loyalty implies a choice, a belief in the leader's character or their mission, and obedience is stripping away that choice, replacing it with submission to power. So you're clear. I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to submit, but the result is a dangerous erosion of the democratic principle that power is derived from the consent of the governed, which is the most fundamental part. And it's me and my student council metaphor again. But the thing is that our leaders, our representatives, I got to stop saying leaders, our representatives are supposed to represent us. They're supposed to give a shit what we care about and take our voices to the Hill and to the state capitals and to our county boards of supervisors. They are supposed to represent us, and that is broken. Very, very broken on both sides, on all sides. Let's just be all inclusive here. Somewhere, somehow, elected representatives realized this was a goddamn awesome meal ticket, and some of them really do their best to be a representative, but a lot of them don't do their best. Nancy Mace. All right, so loyalty supports democracy and obedience threatens it. And that's why it's so important for the journalist to say Trump is surrounding himself with obedient, you insert whatever derogatory term you'd like after that. Like they've got to put it in press so they can figure out a word for what they are. But with obedience, with obedient actors, that's probably it. Trump is surrounding himself with people who have agreed to obey, 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 not be loyal. No, obey. In a functioning democracy, loyalty to ideals and institutions sustains our balance of power. We can actually be loyal to an ideal and loyal to an institution. Yep, that's possible. I used to be really loyal to the Supreme Court. I held them in such high regard. And now that 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 need to change that point of view, that's a hard one for someone like me who grew up with a lawyer as a dad and everything. That's been a hard pivot, but fuck that Supreme Court. That is they I can't believe those people want that power so bad, even though it's like stained and filthy and dirty and they're covered with blood and guts. My God, it's just so craven. Citizens, public officials, military leaders are expected to be loyal to the Constitution, not to any individual. Trump's demand for personal fealty represents a departure from this norm, a departure from that norm. I don't even understand why anybody wants to play with them that way, but they get power. So it redirects loyalty away from democratic principles and directs it all towards him. And the consequences are chilling. Dictators who demand obedience rather than earning loyalty create a culture where dissent is punished and power is consolidated. And oh boy, has he told us how he plans to punish dissent. I don't believe he's going to find any laws on the books to punish dissent. But, you know, that's one of the things you're going to hear when you listen to the Mark Elias 27 minutes is that he's saying we're going to go win by whatever means possible, not just by the old ways. We used to do things nicely with napkins and table settings and, oh yeah, even a dessert fork. No, we're not doing that anymore. You're going to get a knife and a fork, and that knife's going to double duty as your weapon. So yeah, the gloves are off. Dissent is going to be punished and power is going to be consolidated. And legal scholar Ruth Ben-Ghiat describes this as a hallmark of authoritarianism, noting that when leaders rely on fear to suppress opposition, it cloaks their demands in the language of loyalty. And that's where I'm saying we have to stop obeying in advance and using the word loyalty to describe what's going on here. Subservience is disguised as loyalty. Trump's framing of obedience as loyal is not unique, but it is especially concerning given its impact on our governance. Those who comply with his demands, whether Congress, the judiciary, the military, the media, are not acting out of loyalty to him or America's institutions. They're acting out of fear of retribution or a desire to maintain their position. And this distinction matters. When we conflate obedience with loyalty, we normalize behavior that undermines democracy. That's the whole payoff here, guys. Obedience isn't loyalty. If you think it's loyalty, we're on the wrong track. True loyalty cannot be compelled. It must be earned, and it thrives in ecosystems where mutual respect and trust flourish. Obedience, on the other hand, rots in the shadows of authoritarianism, where power is absolute and dissent is silenced. So everyone needs to take responsibility for word choice. And that's how I'm coming out of this thing. I'm going to pull the nose up on this little airplane that feels like it was just crashing into the ground. By calling Trump's allies loyalists, we're risking legitimizing the very behavior that corrodes our democratic values. corrodes, yeah, corrodes, not erodes, no, corrodes them. It just rots them. It's not loyalty that keeps his circle intact, it's fear. And understanding this difference is critical for safeguarding democracy's ideals. We have a shared responsibility to name this dynamic for what it truly is: obedience masquerading as loyalty, and to challenge it at every turn. So, when we come back, let's talk about the blue list. Thank you for the take on loyalty. I'd love to hear what you think. All right. I'm going to have happy music for the blue list because often what I have on here, while helpful, just keeps shining a light on things that are changing that uh, can start to drag you down. So I'm up to 7 buttons on the blue list, and here's what's new today. So as you know, you go to the blue list, it's up in my navigation on my website, and it has tips and resources and sources, and I always have a link to the source of what is happening out there that will help you survive an authoritarian lifestyle. In today's updated news, federal employees are encouraged to ensure their union membership is in good standing. Sounds stupid, but this union's going to work hard as we head into the fight. So there's a link to the AFGE union's webpage and what they're asking everybody to do. But if you're a federal employee, and we all need to go find out who we know that works for the feds and give them hugs, because they're going to need us. They're going to need our support here coming up. It's going to be ugly. So federal employees, just get your memberships and know what you're doing. Links on the page. If you need help understanding why a medical claim you have filed was denied, ProPublica has put out a primer, and this little thing tells you specifically how to write a letter to your insurance intermediary. All the stuff on United Healthcare has me just losing it, because I kind of thought I understood insurance, but I don't think I really understood just how awful these intermediaries are. And I only knew in the back, I always wanted to sue medical insurance for racketeering, because as a non-insurance member, I did not have access to the same pricing as a private pay person, because I was private pay for about 10 years. I just couldn't get insurance because, I had migraines. As a private pay human, I could not get the same price for a service that an insurance company was able to negotiate and obtain for their insured. And that feels like racketeering to me. Why is it that as a private pay, I have to pay more because I'm not allowed to join that club over there where I could get the discount? I'm literally not allowed to join them. So I could never in any way ever have access to that pricing. It was not humanly possible. But I still got punished for being private pay, which by the way, health companies, direct health, like the hospital, or in my case, like Palo Alto Medical Foundation, actually has some private pay perks, but you got to dig for them. They're not going to tell you right out of the box. But if you can write them a check, they're going to knock a ton off your bill just because you're actually giving them money, which apparently is rare. Ha, who knew? Giving them real money is new. So if your claim has been denied, you need to understand why it was denied. And ProPublica has a little template for you to write your insurance company and ask them for the things that you need. It specifically asks for things that will unlock why you got denied. So it's a great tip. It's in there from ProPublica, second item right now under what's new. And then Wired has put together a guide, which I saw this and I'm like, holy crap. Wired has a guide to protecting yourself from government surveillance. Welcome to 2024, everybody. What used to just be a paranoia and something that we knew was happening, but it was over there and it wasn't like ratified as a best practice. Now Wired's putting out a guide to protecting yourself from government surveillance. So if someone would like to read that and come back and talk about it, I'd love it, because I think we need to understand this through discussion. It's going to be hard. I started to read it and I got so upset that I had to let it go. But if there's somebody out there who really is into this government surveillance and doesn't sound like a lunatic, I would love to have you on the podcast. Okay, maybe extra points if you sound like a lunatic. My show could use some lunatics. All right, and then finally, 7 ways Trump administration could affect our finances. And this is still an early take. Some of these things that folks are working on are their best guess. This is actually from CNN Business, and it's good. It's good. You should look at it. There are some, especially if you have a 401k, especially if you are in the stock market or you own property or you have something where you have an asset that you need to keep track of because you were counting on that asset to be there in your retirement. And you may need to start drawing on it, like now because Social Security is going to get killed. Anyway, here's 7 ways the Trump administration could affect our finances. So that's what's hot today on the blue list. When I come back next time, I will have more for the blue list. When you come in, you got the buttons that subsort. Still working on making the page even more accessible, but at least it's a start. And I thank you. Some of you have been giving me tips. Not everybody. I would die if everybody gave me tips. But if you ever have a great tip for the blue list, you can just email it to podcast@jcarol.com. Just get that last E, JCAROLE. But podcast@jcarol.com is directly an email box I set up just for the podcast. So you can send me tips, you can send me notes, whatever you want to do. I'm perfectly fine with you hitting me up there. And it's a great way to communicate with me. All right, that's today's show. Go out and make it a great day, and thank you again for listening.